I think the currency of a great life is paid in attention. What do you pay attention to will really drive, like, you're paying attention to your kids? Are you paying attention to your health?
Mm.
Are you paying attention to your hobbies? Right? Like, if you want to invest in a relationship, the thing you will use to invest in that is your attention.
Welcome to the Rich with Purpose podcast, the finance podcast that's about more than just money. I'm your host, Thabojan Rasiah, financial advisor to hundreds of successful clients over the years. For the full disclaimer, please visit our website, richwithpurpose.com.au, where you can also register your details to get access to all our free resources. And please hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Welcome to a very special episode of the Rich with Purpose podcast. I am super excited to have the legendary Carl Richards for us, who has been a recent guest on my podcast before. Carl is a certified financial planner from the United States. He's the best-selling author of the book, The Behavior Gap, and a weekly columnist in the New York Times. Really famous for his sketches, drawing awesome pictures to explain complex financial concepts. Carl also has released a new book called Your Money, Reimagining Wealth in 101 Simple Sketches. And this is where Carl has taken 101 of his best sketches and put them into a book. So check it out, buy your copy on Amazon. And this episode, I'm super excited because I was very privileged to have access to an early copy of the book. And in this conversation, I talked to Carl about my favorite sketches from the book. Please check out this episode. Really excited. Enjoy. Once again, I'm super excited to have Carl Richards here on the Rich with Purpose podcast as a special release episode. So good to see you again, Carl, after some time.
Yeah, it's really good to have this conversation with you. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And a lot of our listeners will be familiar with your work. Some of them may not be as familiar, but I've been following your work, Carl, for many, many years, particularly the amazing sketches in the way that you've communicated complicated financial concepts to make them easy to understand. And not only that, like cutting through some of the financial jargon that our industry just seems to constantly gravitate to. I absolutely just love getting to the real stuff that we actually should care about as advisors, but as humans. And so I know you're going to release a book very soon after 11 years. That's super exciting. And it's basically a culmination of some of your favorite sketches. Is that right?
Yeah, there's some new ones, and then some of the greatest hits. So it's 101 of these simple sketches with a very short essay. Some of these essays are 2 sentences, some are 2 paragraphs, but none of them will take you more than 4 minutes to read. So it's meant to be, I actually don't think of it as a book, right? I think of it as a conversation grenade. It's sort of like toss it in a room and conversations will break out everywhere. And particularly as you're referencing, the meaningful conversations about money, not the hand wavy, stuff we see on the TV, the financial pornography network, but the stuff that actually matters. Like, why are we doing this in the first place? How to have meaning and purpose in our lives, how to make smart decisions with money that are aligned with what we really care about instead of aligned with some random thing we saw on Instagram. So that's sort of what the book's designed to do, is start those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's dive into some of those, Carl, because I'm sure our listeners will get a lot of value from some of these grenades. And so I've had the privilege of having a look at the book, or the book as you call it, and seen some of these sketches, and I've just picked out some of the ones that really resonate with me, and I'm sure our listeners will feel the same. So let's dive in, the first one that grabs me is number one. The number one student you've got there, and as you've had no prep for this, so but I know you know them inside out. So number one, money equals feelings. I love that.
Tell
So
me why. Tell me why do you love it? It's one of my favorites too, but I'm curious what is it about it that you find interesting?
so I love it because it goes against the grain of everything that we
Mm.
think, right? As society, we think
Mm.
money is more money, and the more money you've got, the better. And we just trying to get rich, and our goal is to have more money. But I know in the work that we do with our clients, we know that more money isn't always better. And understanding
Right.
our values and our purpose, the things that we talk about a lot. And so it resonates from that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like it's interesting if we most of us around the world really were never if we were taught anything about money, we were taught that it was a math problem. It
Mm.
fit into a calculator or a spreadsheet. It should always be rational. Like 2 plus 2 always equals 4, right? It doesn't matter how I'm feeling about it. But 2 plus 2 never equals envy, you know? And
Mm.
and so it turns out I think this is a big part of the problem. It's why I put this as the very first sketch. Is I wanted to set the table that a big part of the problem is we go into our interactions with money and especially with humans. I know this is true in the States. I've spent plenty of time in Australia and New Zealand, and I know that um, it turns out couples often fight about money, right?
Mm.
And when we go to have a conversation about money, we often expect it to be just a rational conversation. And then we're sort of surprised when we're suddenly fighting, right? Like it's like an electric fence. It's like grabbing an electric fence that you didn't know was electric. And I think when we start to realize, like often I'll ask people, what's the first thing you think of when you think of money? And almost no one says a calculator or a spreadsheet. Often if people will say things like fear or anxiety, excitement. Sometimes we will say things like love or apathy or indifference or confinement. Those are all like those are that nobody says store of value or medium of exchange, right? And so I think this is also my editor at the New York Times. This was his favorite sketch. I think once we get clear about, that we're not talking about zeros and ones stored in the cloud. We're talking about our dreams. We're talking about our fears. We're talking about our worries and our excitement, things we're excited about. So if we can understand money equals feelings, then we might have a chance of having conversations about it instead of fighting about it.
So what about those people, Carl, that say, yeah, that's all a bit, dreams and fears. Like, that's just weird, Carl. Like, I just want to get a good return. I just want to build a bank account. I just want to see my balance sheet bigger and, performance. Tell me about the investments. Like, that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I have a lot of empathy for that because it's kind of what we've been taught. It means like to be a sophisticated, smart investor, all you care about is returns and portfolios and what your buddy's telling you at the club. So I have a lot of empathy for that. And of course, performance is a variable, an important variable in meeting our lifetime financial goals. But the question is like, why do you care about that? Like beating an index or having great performing investments, that's not a financial goal. Like a financial goal is, I want to put my kids through school. I want to have enough money to be free to make some decisions about the kind of work I do, or maybe even retire altogether. I want to have enough money to afford a house. Those are financial goals. And it's only one part. And I would submit to you, it's not even the most important part. Performance is not even the most important part of meeting those goals. But getting clear about them and look, again, I've had that conversation probably more than almost any other conversation. It's like, I don't understand what you're on about, feelings and dreams. And I just want to just show me what you got, kid. Like I want the best performing investment. The dilemma with that is that it leads to this never ending cycle of excitement and disappointment because and for those of you who are maybe have your arms crossed right now and you're feeling that way, like first of all, I get it. But just think back, like what's been your experience with your investment experience, right? And what you'll often find that the interesting thing is if we're honest, investments leave a trail, right? It's not hard, largely because you got to do your taxes. It's not hard to go back and see what your experience has been like. And if you're totally focused on performance, often what happens is you get excited about things that have recently done well, right? Because they're the ones there. That's what's in the news. That's what everybody's waving their hand. And it makes total sense to me too. Like I feel that way too. Your buddies are bragging about it. Your neighbors are talking about it, but they're only talking about it because it's recently done well. And then you decide to buy it. And then it has a normal cycle and it, your friends have moved on. The news has moved on to talking about something else. And now suddenly you're like, oh no, is that, so it's this never ending shiny object problem. We call it the hot dot sometimes. And we behave this way in investing in ways that you don't see other way. Like imagine, Thabojan, imagine showing up at the Audi dealership and saying, hey, I need a new A6. And the salesperson says, oh my gosh, you're in luck. We just marked them up 30%. And you say, oh, that's incredible. I'll take 3. Right? Like we don't do this in other areas. And so I think if you're feeling that way, just look back. It turns out like making your investment decisions based on your goals is much better than making your goals fit into your investment decisions.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of sketches I might mention a bit later in terms of specific to investments, but in terms of connecting that, you mentioned that performance or investments is only part. It is very important, but it's only part of the equation.
Yeah.
Sketch number 6 in your book talks about the 4 sources of capital, and I love that because it starts to introduce the things that we don't naturally think about as the other sources of capital. So in that sketch, the 4 sources of capital that you talk about are money, energy, time, and attention. So those other sources, which we don't often talk about. Tell us more about those.
Yeah. So for those of you just listening, this sketch is really simple. It's just a bar graph. There's 4 bars and one of them's labeled money, one's labeled energy, one's labeled time and attention. And the size of the bars doesn't matter, although I spent an inordinate amount of time trying to think through like which one was the tallest one and how do they compare to each other, which is just what I do. But it doesn't really matter all that much. All that matters is, look, there are things to think about. And we often only think about money, but I don't even think money is the most important one. Like I think like it's quite possible time, but if you want to talk about the most valuable one, the one that's I think so interesting is if you take, at least as a society, the one that we've placed the most value on is your attention. Many of the richest people on the planet right now are just merchants of your attention, right? Like all Facebook does is sell your attention. All Instagram does is just sell your attention. I would argue that Twitter or X or whatever we call it these days, Amazon. So we're pointing now at some of the richest people on the planet are really just merchants of your attention. So that should at least give us a pointer of what's valuable. Like what's incredibly valuable is your attention. What are you going to pay attention to? And even that phrase, isn't that interesting? Like you pay attention. I think the cost of a great life, I think the currency of a great life is paid in attention. What do you pay attention to will really drive, like, you're paying attention to your kids? Are you paying attention to your health? Are you paying attention to your hobbies? Right? Like if you want to invest in a relationship, the thing you will use to invest in that is your attention. So anyway, that's just one idea that came out of that, the 4 sources of capital.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That was originally that was originally what I wanted to call the book,
Right.
was the four sources of capital. But
Yeah, yeah.
I for various reasons, I thought we came up
Mm.
with a better name.
And as you said, attention is it. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective of the. I mean, it's being present and all that sort of thing. I've thought about it from that perspective, but the alternate to that, which is what's just blown up in the last 10 years, social media devices, or 20 years, uh, is that's it's such a good reminder, and the value of it,
Yeah.
right? The value of that.
Apparently, it's incredibly valuable. Apparently.
Mm. And there's value in business, but then there's the reminder for us is value to ourselves. So, and when we talk about being present, we talk about getting off devices, we talk about the unhealthy elements of social media and things like that. It's because it's, you know, placing importance to ourselves of that attention.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
my sense is, if like there's other people battling, competing at that scale for your attention, that you ought to realize how valuable it is and be stingy with it. Like, at least, maybe a better word would be very careful with how you allocate it, because it is very, very valuable.
Mm. Absolutely. I mentioned before, and this is a finance type podcast, and as financial professionals, there are a couple of classic sketches that I love relating to investments. Um, One is the behavior gap. The other is repeat until broke. One of my favorites because I just see it all the time. And the third is the big mistake. And then so could probably talk to those somewhat together in terms of investment related
Yeah.
uh, concepts.
Yeah, we talked a little bit of that with the Audi dealership example.
Mm.
It's just, and we have to be like honest and deeply empathetic with why this behavior shows up. Like, you and I and everybody listening, we're hardwired, and this has kept us alive as a species. Like, we're hardwired to get more of stuff that gives us security and pleasure. Like, our brains are wired that way. You know what I mean? And we're hardwired to run away as fast as we can from anything that we think might be danger. We don't even think about it. Like, if there's a rustling in the bush, you don't think like, I'm going to analyze and decide whether that's a lion. You run.
Mm.
Because if you take time to think about it, you're eaten,
Mm.
right? The odds, like, so it's not worth the odds. Well, that's our wiring. And that's been really, really helpful. We would call that adaptive behavior. That's been really helpful for the like all of history. And now, as it relates at least to the investment process, it's maladaptive behavior. Like, because the things that give you security and pleasure are the things that have recently gone up. The things that cause you pain is something that's recently gone down. Like, we've translated, when the market is scary, it's gone down, everybody's running around like you should do something. And it's interesting, like, Warren Buffett, has a lot of great quotes, but the idea of, I want to be fearful when everyone else is greedy,
Mm.
and greedy when everyone else is fearful, is pointing at this exact problem. And it turns out it's really hard to do. I mean, the everyone else part is the
Mm.
part that's really hard to do.
Mm.
And so that's the repeat until broke. It's just a basically, think of it as a stock market chart, just like or a roller coaster ride. And at the top
Mm.
of one bump, it says greed buy. And at the bottom it says fear sell. And then there's a little dot 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 repeat until broke. It's supposed to be a slightly funny way to see all the absurdity of all of our behavior, mine included, that's for sure. Um, because that's what we do. What that translates into is buying high and selling low, which is the exact
Crazy, right?
opposite of, it's exactly the opposite of what we've all been taught. Even our mothers all told us that that's not how to invest, right? So
Mm. Mm.
And so, but it's important to understand why we do it. It makes perfect sense. Like, if my hand's on a stove, I don't really care what reasons or rationale you give me. I'm taking my hand off the stove.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've just misinterpreted, at least when you're invested like an adult, like broadly diversified. When things go down, if we're broadly diversified and we've got a sound investment process, we should actually, that's a sale, right? If I was excited when it was 100 and I'm broadly diversified, I should be even more excited at 50. When you're for most of your investment life, you don't want the market to go up because it's about accumulating shares,
Mm.
right? And
You
so
want things to be cheap, right?
yeah, like I want to buy as many shares as I can. And then, of course, if I could time it perfectly, the last 10 years of my investment life, things would do nothing but go up.
Mm.
Right. And we're never going to get that. But I just think that's a real fundamental part of the problem is the very behavior. And then just to put a finer point on this, if you're going to hire a new rugby coach, and we spent 4 years living in New Zealand, and was you probably, and I don't want to cause any problems here by mentioning the All Blacks, but the All Blacks recently, within the last couple of years, hired a new coach. It would make sense when you're going to hire a new rugby coach to look at the people's past record and expect that it's reasonable to expect it to continue, if not improve. If you're going to hire somebody to do a remodel of your kitchen, it would make sense for you to go look at their past work and expect it to be at least as good, if not better. So all of it, MBA 101, if you have two divisions in a business, one's doing well and the other one's doing poorly, you kill the one that's doing poorly and you allocate those resources to the one that's doing well. That's not how it works when you're talking about investing. Yeah. So it's easy to see why we all make these mistakes. And because we know we make these mistakes, it's really easy to see the reason for putting one of the other sketches you put in, the reason for putting something between you and those mistakes. Guardrails, rules, a person, a good financial advisor, a mother-in-law, an accountant. It doesn't matter what it is, something that will act as a brake between you and your desire to run from that lion. You know what I mean? So that's sort of how I think about those.
Yeah, because we just keep doing it, don't we? And it's funny.
We do.
Because we do because it makes sense in a lot of other areas in life, whether it's the rugby team or the business, or the hot stove. We keep forgetting that it's different with investments. And so we're in 2005, August 2005 right now. And at the beginning of the year, there was all this angst about what's happening in the world and things changing and et cetera, et cetera. And all through the year, people have been telling us how bad things are going to be, et cetera. And we look forward now and we're at all-time highs in, the biggest markets around the world, in the Australian share market, in the US share market. Things have turned around. Now, no one would have predicted that at the start of the year. And I guess it just goes to show you, no one can ever predict anything. But
yep.
It's a classic example. Every year, the smartest people, the smartest analysts and economists keep saying, "Oh, things are looking bad. We've got to, and it's amazing, isn't it, how the smartest people in investments, so-called, can't manage that behavior themselves."
Yeah, and I think we have as a species, we've long looked to someone else to tell us about the future. Where in the West here, like, where will the buffalo be? When will the rain come? Like, we want somebody desperately. We're willing to pay a lot of money. We're willing to believe in lots of fairy tales if somebody can just tell us what the future is. And it's no different. Like, they look smart. They've got really fancy suits on. They're talking about it from London or New York or Sydney. And everything seems like it should make sense. But then you get, again, like, that's not the way investing works. Like, if done right, you're going to buy a high quality, well-designed portfolio and you're going to leave it alone. But again, not to overuse Buffett, but one of my favorite quotes is, benign neglect. Well, he said the hallmark of our investment success is benign neglect bordering on sloth.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
That's crazy to think like,
Mm,
okay, we talked earlier about the guy with his arms folded saying, "Hey, give me the best investment." And then you've got the guy that's the best investor, arguably in history, saying benign neglect bordering on sloth.
mm,
It turns out it's not that same like hard charging energy you get from a Ivy League MBA.
mm,
It's
mm,
like I gotta if I just work harder, like I know that feeling. It seems like that should be what works, but then you got Buffett saying benign neglect bordering on sloth. Which one are you gonna
mm,
believe? So design, like last terrible analogy, but yeah, you would never plant a tree and then dig it up every quarter to see if the roots are growing. Like the way this works is if it compounds, let it compound.
mm,
Leave it
mm,
alone.
mm, mm,
Leave it
mm.
alone.
Yeah, 100%. I think Russell did a study. I'm not sure how recent it was, but they looked at the best performing investors they had, and they were the dead ones.
Yeah,
So
I
the
think I've heard
accounts
that
that
too.
no one was even looking at performed the best because they weren't messing it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it takes us to that sketch number 22 that I like as well. Focus where it counts. And you have a Venn diagram, which has a combination of things that matter and things I control, which tells us where we should be focusing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of my maybe one of my own favorites. It's the only one, like lots of people print these and put them on their walls in their offices. This is the only one that my wife's allowed in the house. So I think if again, just to repeat it, like if you were to make a list when it comes to investment success, let's even broaden it a little bit. When it comes to lifetime financial success, if you were to make a list of the things that matter to lifetime financial success, the good news is most of the things on that list, like discipline, your how much money you have in different types of investments, which we call asset allocation, how much you save, how long you save for, how much you take out, when you take it out. Most of the things on that list are actually within your control. Most of the things that actually matter are within your control. There's one glaring thing that matters a lot. It matters a lot, and it's not in your control. And that's economy, stock market, share market return. Like we could just say returns and economy
Mm,
and news too. But really, just let's just go with returns, equity markets or share market returns. You don't really have any control over those in the short term. And in fact, you don't really have any control over those in the long term. If you stay in, if you behave, which you have a lot of control over, if you behave for the long term, your odds are really good that you'll get a good return. So even there you have some, but the
mm,
problem is you have no control over it. It does matter daily. Sure, it matters daily. You have no control over it daily. The problem is we spend 80% of our time when we think of investing, we've just taken one little thing on the list of things that matter and we're devoting, most of our thought, most of our
mm,
cognitive energy is spent on that one thing that doesn't matter. And I'm not saying I think it's actually a great idea to completely ignore the share markets, but let's not even do that. Let's just shift the percentages,
mm,
right? Like spend most of your time on the things that actually matter that you can control.
mm, mm,
If you can't control it, what good does it do to focus on it?
mm,
And of course, if it doesn't matter, why are you even thinking about it? But it turns out, so a lot of people have used this over the years. That's probably 15 years old. A lot of people have used that over the years as a touchstone, if you will, like a reminder. Like if they start to feel nervous or worried, they'll pull it out and think, okay, wait. What about the situation matters? Okay, great. Of those things that matter, what are the things I can control? And if I can't, what's the use of worrying about it?
yeah, 100%. Now I know you've been very generous with your time, Carl, and I don't know if you've got a couple more minutes to finish up
Sure, of course.
one more
Yeah, of course.
sketch. Um, Everything that we've talked about, including, they all make sense, right? But execution's really hard. And so to leave our audience with one final thing practically to help them actually execute. Um,
Yeah.
it's one of the hardest things to do is, right, executing, sticking to something, whether it's a diet or health or money. And one of the sketches, you've got number 99, which is called Your Blind Spots. And you know, it doesn't matter how smart or how hard we work. Like, why is this such a powerful concept?
Yeah, so this is another bar chart, and it says chances I will see a blind. It's always, this one's always funny to me just because it always, I always have to like joke at how obvious so many of these are, right?
Mm,
Like we all have blind spots when it comes to our behavior, and particularly around our behavior with money. And here's the most profound thing you'll hear in this entire podcast is you can't see your own.
mm,
Right? Like by definition, they're blind spots. You can't see them. And so the chance, um the reason you get help or advice or coaching or therapy or any of those things is not because you're dumb, right? In fact, it's probably the opposite. But it's because it's gonna come from somebody who's not you. Right? I am really good. I'm really, really good at helping other people make decisions with their money. Really, I would actually feel like I could go toe to toe with anybody in the world. That's how
mm,
good I am at it. I'm terrible with my own. Right? Like, it's why we have a financial planner, and
mm,
she has told me directly to my face in a very painful way. Like, in fact, my wife and my financial planner fired me from attending our financial planning meetings.
mm,
Right? So, like, which again, I was grateful for. I've been trying to get fired for 20 years from those meetings. I'm better off if I don't know anything about it, but I'm really good helping other people.
mm,
And so that's why we have a financial planner, is because I need something between me and the big mistake. And the best thing my financial planner can do is point out blind spots in my behavior. And it happened again just literally 2.5 days ago. One of my kids, my adult kids, pointed out a blind spot that was incredibly painful to have it pointed out. Like something I had been doing and saying that had resulted in them feeling anxious about money, to the point where they said they would worry even when they went to the grocery store. And I can't believe I did that. And when I saw that, when they pointed that behavior out, all I could say was like, I mean, after I sort of got my bearings and decided not to be mad or defensive, which took a minute, all I could say was like, "I'm so sorry, and thank you for pointing it out. Like, let's work on that together. Like that needs to change." But I didn't know I was doing it, and so I think, um, and if you wonder what your blind spots are, and especially if you think you might not have any, and you're on a day when you're feeling brave, just give your spouse or partner permission to actually tell you.
mm,
Right, and remember, they have a strong disincentive to not tell you,
mm,
right? A strong disincentive to sorry, there's a strong disincentive for them to tell you. It's like, because they know what's gonna happen. It's not gonna be fun. We're all hesitant to do it because we don't want we're scared if we call somebody else out, then we have to be open to getting called out ourselves. But man, if I have broccoli between my teeth, I'm about to go into a meeting, I sure hope someone would tell me. And so I think
mm,
the same thing. If there's something about my behavior that was causing anxiety, unnecessary anxiety for one of my kids for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, man, I wish I would have known earlier. And maybe I wasn't ready for it, and I hadn't created an environment where they could say it. But that's a fresh example of a
mm,
blind spot that was only pointed out because we have a great relationship with a financial planner who's allowed those sorts of conversations to happen.
mm, mm. And so you'd say there's blind spots that are, um, potentially something that we're doing that's a negative that we can't see. Is there an opportunistic element to it as well?
Yeah, well, tell me, you mean an opportunity, like maybe there's blind spots that are good?
Yeah, yeah. As in, we can't see the thing we need to do, or
Yeah, no, I think I've had that experience plenty of times where someone has said, "Did you know if you just make this little tweak," right? Like either A, the business would do well, or, you're doing a great job, but did you know if you just were to listen a little bit longer to your kid, or, if you just make this one little tweak to your investment, like, wow, you've managed to save a bunch of money. If you just uh, change this one thing about how you approach taxes, it would save a bunch of money. Right? That's a good example
Mm,
of something that I just didn't know I didn't know,
mm,
right? And that can also be seen as a blind spot for sure.
mm. Well, that's awesome, Carl. Thanks. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing the book. Well, I think it's already out, isn't it? Um,
Available for pre-order. It's out October 21st, but available for
so
pre-order.
pre-order on Amazon probably. And
Yep.
we just talked about 5 or 6 of the sketches. There's 101 in there, and there's
Yeah.
a whole. I just talked to some of my favorites, but there's a bunch of in there that are so great just to explore different concepts around money, behavior, life, how we think about these things, and so thank you for putting that together and sharing those sketches with the world,
Mm.
to try and, as you said, increase the conversations we're having about some of these things and just explore them. I think that's the most valuable thing we can do, is explore them, talk about them.
Yeah. Thanks, Thabojan. Really great conversation. Thanks for how thoughtful you were with thinking through what we were going to talk about.
Thanks so much, and a
Yep.
legend of the industry. Always great to have you. So thanks so much.
Mm. Cheers.
Cheers, Carl. All good.
So fun. Thanks for doing that.
That's all right. It's amazing.
Yeah. Really excited about it and excited to get back over there sometime soon. So we'll see what happens next year.
Yeah. You're in Utah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
Okay,
again.
my friend.
Leave it to it.
Thanks. Okay. See ya.
See you. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. Our aim is to share the knowledge with as many people as possible, so please share it with everyone you know. And if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and visit our website, richwithpurpose.com.au, to get access to all our free resources. See you next time.